Dr. Rachel Levine is President Biden's pick to be the next Assistant Secretary of Health. If confirmed, she will make history as the first openly transgender federal official. Her nomination is attracting a lot of positive attention, but also some transphobic attacks from some big names on the right. NBC News reporter Jeff Taylor is covering Levine's nomination. Jeff, wonderful to have you with us. Could you tell us more about this harassment? What's its nature? Where's it coming from?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So we're seeing a number of figures, media figures on the right who have, made these sort of statements about the nominee. For instance, podcaster Ben Shapiro has misgendered her in a tweet. Breitbart, the conservative media outlet, also misgendered her, as well as deadnamed her, referred to her by her former name. And in fact, in that article, referenced that this was something that Dr. Levine had dealt with before, but still deadnamed and misgendered her nonetheless. Tucker Carlson referred to her being transgender as, quote, her sexual orientation or sex life or whatever, which is not an accurate definition, as well as the attorney, a former Trump attorney, Jenna Ellis, who also misgendered her and then refused to apologize. Most notably, however, a state representative, Rep. Jeff Taylor, also posted something that was very insulting of her looks and then gave an apology, but it was an apology that was sort of a general apology that many said kind of missed the mark because it did not directly apologize to her or to the transgender community in general.
So Jeff, let's talk bigger picture here, because misgendering and deadnaming certainly insulting and hurtful to Dr. Levine, but this is also detrimental to the wider transgender community. What is the broader concern here?
Well, we know that misgendering trans people is dangerous for their mental health. And one of the advocates that I spoke to for my article, Jillian Brandstetter, who's with the NAALC, she mentioned that there are so few trans people that are this prominent in public life, and that often when trans people see someone such as Dr. Levine treated in this way, that it can be very triggering for them as well, especially for trans youth. And they might get the impression that even if they achieve at the highest level, that these are the sort of attacks that could still be leveled against them, which is, can be very devastating.
I know you spoke with several LGBTQ advocates. What did they say about the importance of Dr. Levine's nomination beyond just public health?
Well, it's certainly a huge moment for representation. Again, there aren't a ton of openly trans people who are, well, in fact, no one has reached this historic level. If Dr. Levine is, in fact, confirmed, she will be the first person confirmed by the U.S. Senate for a federal position. So they stress that really, the main thing here is that she is qualified for the job. She's the right person for the job in their minds because of her experience, but that is also a big moment for the trans community and the LGBTQ community broadly in terms of the representation.
All it takes is seeing one person doing something for you to believe that you can do it too, because you're like them. Jeff, I want to ask you about one more bit of controversy. Dr. Levine took some heat for pulling her mom out of a care facility last year while Levine was the health secretary of Pennsylvania. But there was some misinformation tied up in that criticism. Could you kind of just take us through what happened there?
Sure. So her mother, a 95-year-old woman, was in a personal care facility, which she was then removed from. And this was at the same time when there was a policy in place to place those who were in nursing homes back into their nursing homes, even if they were COVID positive, but they were stable. And so some people saw this as, a problem, as sort of a hypocritical moment. Dr. Levine has noted that, in fact, there is a difference in terms of who oversees the personal care facilities. That's under the Department of Human Services. She ran the Department of Health, and also noted that it was her mother's decision, that she was perfectly capable of making that decision, and also that in choosing to have people go back into nursing homes, that this was actually following the Medicare and Medicaid services plan, and that also with the CDC saying to limit the people who were visitors, which they also did, that in fact COVID was already in the facility, not going to be brought into the facility, so that this was just something that is being presented in a way that she feels is not accurate.
Jeff, great reporting on Dr. Levine today. Thank you so much for being with us to share it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For the Secretary of Interior, I nominate Congresswoman Deb Haaland.
Born in Winslow, Arizona, Deborah Haaland didn't stay put for too long.
My dad was a 30-year career Marine and combat veteran in Vietnam, and so because of my dad's career, we traveled a lot.
His people came to America from Norway about a century ago. Her mother's family, on the other hand, have somewhat deeper roots.
My ancestors migrated to this area of New Mexico in the late 1200s, which makes me about a 35th generation New Mexican.
A Lugana Pueblo Native American, Haaland's ancestral culture is dear to her, in part because the U.S. government tried to erase it for so long.
Both my grandparents were taken from their families and sent to Indian boarding school to get Indians off their reservations, nations, pueblos, so they could essentially take their land or to take away their status as federally recognized Indian tribes.
After a military brat childhood attending 13 different public schools across the country, Haaland continued working at a bakery in Albuquerque and struggled with alcoholism, convicted of 2 DWIs.
I'm 30 years sober. I wanted people to know that I understand what it's like. I recognize that there's an issue in New Mexico with addiction, and that I want to do something about it.
At the age of 28, Haaland enrolled at the University of New Mexico and earned a degree in English. 4 days after graduating, she gave birth to her daughter. She launched a business selling salsa, but still struggled with poverty.
I struggled with homelessness. I relied on food stamps and raised my child as a single mom.
And took out student loans to attend University of New Mexico's law school in 2006.
My daughter Soma and I both graduated from APS. We both graduated from UNM. We're both paying off our student loans.
It was after law school that Haaland first got involved with politics, working as New Mexico's Native American vote director for Obama's 2012 presidential campaign.
Because I just wanted more Native Americans to vote. I started out as a phone volunteer.
She ran to be New Mexico's lieutenant governor in 2014. But she lost. 1 year later, and undeterred by her political ambitions, she then became the first ever Native American woman to lead a state party as the chair of New Mexico's Democratic Party. And in 2018, another first.
I never imagined a world where I would be represented by someone who looks like me. Tonight, New Mexico, you are sending one of the very first Native American women to Congress.
Could I ask for a point of personal privilege to have the members of this institution in the gallery recognize you as the first Native American woman to ever chair the House proceedings?
Now, if confirmed,
First Native American Cabinet Secretary, and welcome, welcome, welcome.
she'll be in charge of our country's national parks, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, bringing clean water to over 31 million Americans, and managing natural resources. Haaland is known as a progressive, is anti-fracking, and a big proponent of the Green New Deal. And she's likely to help Biden make good on a campaign promise.
No fracking and or oil on federal land.
A sentiment echoed by Haaland in a 2019 interview with The Guardian when she said, quote, "I am wholeheartedly against fracking and drilling on public lands." Traditional energy lobbyists are worried for their future should Holland be confirmed, especially those closest to home.
There's no state that has a bigger connection to oil and gas development on federal lands than New Mexico.
The oil and gas industry is vital to New Mexico's economy, bringing in almost half of the state's revenue each year.
But Holland is steadfast in her vision for a clean energy future.
As our country faces the impacts of climate change and environmental injustice, the Interior Department has a role to address these challenges. Growing up in my mother's Pueblo household made me fierce. My life has not been easy. I'll be fierce for all of us, for our planet and all of our protected land.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.